Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. When my wife and I bought our house last year, we were thrilled to have a backyard with a pool. We looked forward to lazy summer days lounging by the water with our 5-year-old daughter, Emma. The previous owners told us the homeowners associations took care of shared amenities like the pool and clubhouse. I didn't think much of it at the time. Boy, was I wrong. The first sign of trouble came early this summer when I received a notice from the Homeowners Association stating new pool rules. The letter said that only Homeowners Association's members over 18 were allowed to use the pool and guests had to be accompanied by a resident at all times. I scratched my head, wondering if this was a mistake. Our real estate agent had assured us the pool was part of the package when we bought the place. I decided to go straight to the source and attended the next Homeowners Association's meeting to clear up the confusion. As soon as I mentioned my daughter using the pool, the president, an older bald man named Phil, sneered at me. "This is an adult community pool," he declared. "We can't have unsupervised children running around being disruptive." I tried to explain that Emma was well behaved and that we would be watching her the whole time, but Phil refused to budge. "The rules have been set. No exceptions," he said sternly. The other board members nodded in agreement, their expressions stern. I realized I was fighting a losing battle and would get nowhere with these people. Defeated, I left and reluctantly broke the news to my wife and Emma when I got home. My daughter's crestfallen face just about broke my heart. The pool was one of the main selling points of the house for our family. Denying Emma access to it seemed incredibly unfair and ridiculous. As the hot summer days dragged on, I watched enviously as the neighborhood kids splashed around and played Marco Polo in our pool. It made my blood boil to see Emma gazing longingly out the window at the water she was banned from enjoying. One unbearable 90-degree day, I'd had enough. I decided to take matters into my own hands. With floaties on her arms and sunscreen slathered across her face, I led Emma out to the pool. No power-hungry homeowners associations was going to ruin our summer. We had been relaxing in the water for 20 blissful minutes when I heard the gate aggressively swing open. Phil came storming toward us, face purple with rage. "What do you think you're doing?" he bellowed. "You are violating the rules." I calmly told him that we were simply using our backyard pool as any homeowners should be able to do. Phil was fuming. "You signed a contract agreeing to follow our policies when you moved into this neighborhood," he spat. "No, we didn't actually," I replied. This caught Phil off guard. I explained that after the last Homeowners Association's meeting, I dug up our paperwork and discovered we had never agreed to any covenants or signed control of the pool over to the Homeowners Associations. In fact, the pool was located squarely on our private property. Phil stood there opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water. He clearly did not expect me to have a solid grasp of the legal documentation. After a few awkward moments of stunned silence, he finally sputtered out a weak threat to take us to court if we continued to violate the pool policies. I calmly told Phil we were fully within our rights to use our own pool, whenever we damn well pleased. If he wanted to take us to court, he was welcome to waste his money. Fuming, Phil stormed off empty-handed while Emma and I enjoyed the rest of our pool day. In the following weeks, I exchanged some tersely worded letters back and forth with the Homeowners Association's lawyer. But their position was growing weaker by the day. Once I showed them the property line and permitting paperwork for the pool, it became abundantly clear we had the upper hand. After a month of blustering threats from the homeowners associations leading nowhere, they finally backed down. Their lawyer sent me a letter acknowledging that, upon further review of the property boundaries and permitting paperwork, it appears your pool lies on your private land, not homeowners association's common area. It went on to say they would no longer obstruct my family's access to it. I excitedly shared the news with Emma, whose eyes lit up brighter than the sun glinting off the water. That weekend, we invited all her friends over for an epic pool party to celebrate. Watching a dozen happy kids splashing around guilt-free in our pool was the sweetest revenge I could imagine against Phil and his cronies. Ever since our legal victory, standing up to the ridiculous homeowners associations has felt amazing. Just yesterday, I caught Phil glaring angrily as I helped Emma practice swimming across the pool. I gave him a big smile and wave as they paddled by. With summer winding down, I'm grateful I didn't let power-hungry busybodies ruin our family's pool time. The whole ordeal made me realize it's not worth compromising when you know you're in the right. I learned to stand firm because no amount of intimidation tactics can supersede the law and documentation on your side. Our house may come with an obnoxious homeowners associations attached, but it doesn't mean I have to take their BS lying down. After all, I'm the rightful owner, and that pool belongs to me. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Cast. Stop, me, female 5 and 11. Bob, friend store manager. Chief, my boss, entitled jerk, who lost his car. Okay, background. I worked as a firefighter as an investigator for an independent department. For information, an investigator was the rank of LT, and was based out of a large station, 2 engines, 1 newer 110 tower ladder truck, relative later, 1 chief car, and 1 utility truck. Every day, the food duties changed from firefighter to firefighter. My chief's turn to cook when this happened. My friend Bob worked as a GM of a small grocery store. There was a long empty space in front of the store marked with the following sign, emergency vehicles only. Enter entitled jerk. He had a nice-looking BMW car and always parked in the above spot every week. Bob told entitled jerk that he couldn't park there. I can park wherever I make more in a day that you make in a week. My friend calls me complaining about entitled jerk. I agree to go and watch the spot. I get into our utility truck, which had the department decals on the door and a single red light on the dash. I park in the emergency vehicles only spot. As I am walking in, I hear, "You can't park there, it's my special spot." I turn and look at entitled jerk. "Excuse me," I ask. "I am on official duties and can park there." I pointed to the decal on the door. Entitled jerk looks and says, "You can't be a firefighter, you're a girl. Move your truck and leave C-word." Now I'm proud of my job. In a department of 2,000, I was one of 5 women on the department. I graduated top in my class. I have a shocked-looking expression on my face. I get really pissed off. I walk into my friend's office to get more information about his problem with entitled jerk, as Bob explains the continuous parking violations, and I see a small notice on the fire suppression system, sprinklers, that said the inspection was coming up. I smile as I get an idea. Cue the revenge. I get some information, leave Bob's office, and get into the truck heading back to the station. I arrive and head into my chief's office. I tell him of entitled jerk and what he said and does. Chief is a 6 inches, 320 Samoan. He sees everyone as family. Chief's face gets bright red. I explained my idea, and he gets very happy. He rushes out and calls a station meeting. I lay out my idea. We send out the station to do a fire drill inspection by sending the old truck and 1 engine to the store. My friend will call the station the next time entitled jerk parks in the fire lane. Skip to 2 weeks later, Bob called the station stating that entitled jerk had just parked. As I am thanking him, I hear his fire alarm go off. I rush and change into my investigator uniform with turnout gear, tell Chief, and send the trucks out. I ride in the Quint. We arrive and I see entitled jerk's car right in the emergency vehicle spot. I radio to have 1 engine to pull right in front of entitled jerk's car, and the truck to park right beside the driver's side door. I get out and the engineer starts setting up the ladder, which means 4 very large and heavy support struts go down, and 1 crushes the front of his hood. The alarm goes off. The lineman breaks his windows as he runs the large 5-inch draft line from the pump to the standpipes, the fire access to the sprinkler system. Through his front seats, I go in to find Bob hurriedly getting people out as the alarm is going off. Entitled jerk runs out of the store, sees his car, and goes ballistic. I radio the PD dispatch and request a few officers to the store as I had a male was impeding a fire operation. The dispatcher says that they will send a few officers. 3 officers show up and I ask them to follow me. They do when I call out. "Hey, leave my firefighters alone." Entitled jerk turns and sees me. He rushes up screaming that I'll pay for damaging his precious baby, his car. I stop him and tell him that if he didn't leave that, he would be arrested. He gets in my face. "You did this, he'll have your job for this." He then turns, pushing me back. The officers and I rush and tackle entitled jerk to the ground. After they cuff him, I calmly inform EB that he was under arrest for assault and interference with a fire investigation, and that his car would be towed for parking in a fire lane. I later found out that it was crushed. Entitled jerk got 12 months probation for pushing me and interfering with a fire operation. He also got a fine of $500 for parking, the cost of the tow, and he lost his nice BMW. Moral of this story, don't park where you shouldn't or bad things will happen. The next one is a petty revenge story. I work from home full-time and rarely drive unless I'm grocery shopping or out for an appointment. In my complex, there are non-reserved spots and reserved spots in the underground garage, all of which are not assigned. As long as you have a reserved sticker on your vehicle, any of the reserved spots, which are all labeled reserved, are fair game. I have a non-reserved sticker because it's $40 cheaper than the reserved pass. I was coming back from an appointment and turned into my neighbor's reserved spot so that I could back my car into the open, non-reserved spot behind me. Lo and behold, male Karen in his rusty 2007 RAV4 starts honking at me for being in his spot, telling me that I can't park there because I don't have a reserved sticker. I told him I was only backing out. And I probably should have let it go, but his Karen-ness pissed me off so much. As I was getting on the elevator, I quickly realized he only wanted to park there was because it was right next to the elevator. A light bulb went off in my head and I made my way to the rental office, it's in same building, and asked to upgrade my parking pass. It's an extra $40. I'll be shelling out, but it's worth the petty revenge. I'm waiting for him to leave for work tomorrow so I can move my car into his spot and leave it there for God knows how long. There are perks to being fully remote. The next one is a malicious compliance story. The nursing home I work in has gone through multiple members of management. Every time we get a new director of nursing, DON, we have a mandatory meeting where he/she will introduce themselves and the new rules they put into place. One of the ghosts of Don's past was one I'll call Karen. She had the haircut, the attitude, and the shrill voice. The first rule Karen set into place was that one CNA had to be on the hall at all times. Absolutely no exceptions. We were seriously understaffed, so it wasn't always possible to always be on the hall. Being one of the CNAs who has to work the hall alone a lot because there are no people who will come in to help, I of course tried to explain what the flaw was in her rule. She did that, I'm the dominant one head tilt, and interrupted me to say, "You don't need to question my rules." The next rule Karen set was that there would be absolutely no cell phone usage in the facility. All cell phones had to be left in our vehicles or in a basket next to the time clock. No exceptions. This ticked off even the members of the administration. The scheduler will text people to ask if they will come into work. The nurses use cell phones to communicate with the director and Dawn when they aren't in the facility. People grumbled, but she yelled, "These are the rules. If you don't like it, you can find another job. CNAs are a dime a dozen." That is exactly what some of the CNAs did. We lost 4 more people right after that meeting, making us even more understaffed. This ticked me off because one of them was the best partner I ever had. So here comes my petty revenge malicious compliance. And the first day I had to work alone after that meeting, I kept her words in mind. One CNA on the hall at all times. No exceptions. One of our VIP residents hit the call light within 10 minutes of my shift, wanting some brownies from the kitchen. The kitchen is off the hall, so I go straight to Karen's office, which luckily was on my hall. "Karen, I'm the only aide here, and Miss Carr wants some brownies from the kitchen." Karen, "Why are you telling me? Go get them for her." Me, "You said there has to be one CNA on the hall at all times. I can't leave the hall to get them." Karen, "Then get another CNA to go get them for you." Me, "You said we can't use cell phones, so I have no way to contact another aide." She gets up from her desk in a huff and gets the brownies. When she returns, she shoves the brownies in my hands and says, "Don't bother me for petty mess again." Okay, even more compliance. Because she was stubborn, this malicious compliance went on for a few hours, so I'll shorten it into a list. No residents were harmed during the malicious compliance. Keep in mind that this all happened within one shift. I work on a very demanding hall with nearly 40 people on it. Before you say that, there shouldn't be one CNA to 40 people. Trust me, I know. 3 residents wanted washcloths or towels, but I didn't have any, so I couldn't go get them one. 5 more residents wanted snacks from the kitchen, but I was the only CNA and couldn't get them any. 2 residents wanted showers, which I could have done, but I wasn't allowed to leave the hall to find an aide to watch mine while I did it. The trash stunk like holy hell, but I couldn't leave the hall to take it out, so it stunk up the hallway in Karen's office. I may have moved the trash bin closer to her door. I couldn't pass out ice water because I couldn't leave the hall to get the ice cart. Supper trays came out and I couldn't leave the hall to go get it. I'll never forget the look on Karen's face when I knocked on the door and told her that getting the residents fed shouldn't count as petty mess, so I needed her to go get the trays. Luckily, Karen was staying late and this didn't last longer than this one day. The residents kept complaining and finally, Miss Red, our nosiest resident who crashed the mandatory meeting, lead a lot of the complaining residents to Karen's office. One of those residents was Miss Carr. She yelled at Karen so loud because she couldn't get her ice that people started peeking around the corner to see what was going on. Karen tried her hardest to defuse the situation and explain to Miss VIP why the rule was in place. Miss Carr was having none of it. Karen didn't know that Miss Carr used to be a nurse, and that's why the director of the facility made her a VIP. After her tongue lashing, Karen came up to me, seething with anger. Through her gritted teeth, she said, "You can leave the hall as long as it pertains to patient care." She slammed her office door so hard that something inside of it fell. I heard her say, "Crap," on the other side of the door after the crash. Karen didn't last much longer after this because the facility had a lot of demanding residents and an even more demanding director. I don't know what was happening on the administration side, but I hear horror stories all the times about it. The next one is an entitled people story. So last year, I ended a toxic friendship with a girl who I'd known for over 20 years. We had our ups and downs, but she started emotionally blackmailing me to divorce my husband. In addition to that, she was dating a guy who was in a band with a man who literally tried to kill my dog and threatened me. I couldn't be friends with her anymore for these and other reasons like tearing me down, insulting my intelligence, and constantly trying to manipulate me into agreeing with everything she did and said. I was a weak little pushover, and I recognize that and do not deny it. I was scared to end the friendship because in the past she had brutally slandered me and hurt relationships in my life. But finally I just did it and calmly ended the friendship. She promised me she wouldn't try to hurt me, but within days she sent a deeply inappropriate email to my place of work, vehemently telling me what a terrible, disgusting person I was and threatening me. I immediately blocked her on everything to protect myself, but it wasn't enough. Within months I was hearing about her slander and lies, and it was beyond disturbing. She lied so much I can't even understand how she sleeps at night. She even claimed it was her who ended the friendship, which is like those petty people who get dumped and then try to tell everyone they dumped the person. I didn't respond in any way. I have a mortgage, good job, and lots of responsibility with a farm to manage. I wrongly assumed she would stop and get tired of slandering me, but she didn't. She still is doing it. I've lost 2 significant friendships because of this slandering, and while I understand that those friends weren't healthy for me considering they ghosted me because of slander, it still hurt. Then I got a cruel message after getting major surgery from a shared friend, literally shredding me apart. This was from a person I had welcomed into my home earlier that year and gone out of my way to host kindly and generously. But I didn't respond to that either. I simply deleted it and moved on. But this girl won't stop. I just want her to forget about me, but she won't. Her hatred is unreal. The lies have distorted me into this absolute monster when I'm not. I'm autistic and an addict in recovery and survived severe childhood sexual abuse. I am slow to anger and allow people to trample me. My family was part of a cult, and despite all of this, I've done whatever I can to be a kind and gentle person. But my patience with this is gone. I want to sue her for slander and defamation, but I just can't gather the courage to do it. I regret the friendship so much. She used and abused me, and when I didn't obey her demands for my private life, she threw a massive tantrum and won't stop trying to hurt me. She claims I almost destroyed her life, which is actually comical considering I simply ended a toxic friendship and never contacted her again. I didn't email her work. I didn't slander her to anyone. I didn't talk about her to our mutual friends. I acted like a 34-year-old adult woman. I don't even know why I'm writing this besides to warn people. If you know in your gut someone is bad news, walk away. Do it before I did because you may end up in a similar nightmare. I just want to live and she won't leave me be. It's obsessive and creepy at best and illegal slander at its worst. The next one is an entitled Parent Story. Some context here, I was in the Army for 5 years and was near a IEDD when it exploded and have some scars on my arms and legs. Cast, me, my wife, Karen's husband, Karen, and her kid. This took place 2 years ago and we had a semi-big 4th of July party. It was hot out and I had shorts and a tank top on. Some scars were visible, but most were fixed with surgery. The main one was on my arm and running from my shoulder to my elbow. A kid asked me why I had it, and I just said I got hurt. He just walked away to his mom and dad. I was standing at the grill like any dad at a party, and Karen stormed over and just started yelling that what I told her son traumatized him. I was confused for a minute before she pointed at my arm. Apparently, I was an awful person for doing this. The yelling attracted my wife and Karen's husband. The husband was mad at me because I made his wife angry and whatnot. My wife tried to calm them down with me to no use. Karen yelled that I need to leave my own party because I was big and scary to the kids, and she thought that I was threatening to her. I apologized for looking scary, but I also explained that I will not leave my own party, but her family is free to leave. We ended up just asking them to leave after a loud argument. The worst part is that I burned the burgers. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.